Welcome to Ill-Equipped History, where two best friends who are not equipped to tell you really anything tell you about something. So, I'm Emily. Something that happened. And this is Morgan.
Hi.
Hi. How are you today?
I am alive, I think.
You think? Not 100%.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, work is getting very, very busy, and it's taking up basically all of my mental energy to stay as organized as I need to and like coordinate everything, and I'm tired.
Yeah, I feel that. We do have one saving grace in this time of year. Two saving graces in this time of year. The pumpkins do be spicing.
Yes.
And the football is footballing.
Yes. Kyle and I went to walk our dog Saturday or Sunday morning. I don't even remember at this point. And we were just like, wow, it feels so nice out today. No, Saturday, because Sunday morning I went to go walk him and I was like, ooh, it is chilly. It's like 65 degrees.
Yes.
I was like, is that fall? Is that fall? Is that fall?
It was brisk. And listen, I'm having a good week. The Vols won.
Yes.
Even though we were a little sketchy there at the beginning against a team called the Wolf Pack. I don't know. But my fantasy football team actually won this week too.
Yay! Good for you. Yay. I saw that Vanderbilt in Nashville, they got so many touchdowns they ran out of fireworks.
What?
And their sign.
What a good problem to have.
I know. And they have I saw pictures of it. They had a sign that said, insert fireworks here. We will get more fireworks soon.
I love that. So, are you ready to get into this skit?
Let's do it.
It's 7 a.m. on the morning of June 13th, 1962. The guards at Alcatraz are doing their morning call and walking throughout the cells.
997.
Present.
1457.
Present.
1292.
Present.
1436.
Present.
1345.
Present.
1441. 1441. 1441. You better not have overslept again.
The guard goes over to the bars where he sees 1441 is soundly sleeping. He pokes the inmate in the head in an attempt to wake him up. With just the lightest of touch, the inmate's head falls off and rolls onto the floor.
Ah! Wait a minute. That's a fake head! Alert! Alert! We have an escape! I repeat, we have an escape!
This is not only a daring prison escape, but arguably one of the most famous in history. Morgan, I know you know about this because we watched a whole episode about it.
We did. Yes.
But lovely ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about The Great Escape from Alcatraz.
Woo!
San Francisco. So before we get into the actual prison escape today, let's talk about the history of Alcatraz, because I feel like we all have this idea of what Alcatraz is. And some of it's true. Some of it might be a little exaggerated because pop culture.
Yes.
Yeah. There's only been a few movies made.
Just a couple.
Just a couple. So, discovery and the name. So, in 1775, the Spanish explorer Juan Manuel de Ayala was the first to sail into what is now the San Francisco Bay. And his expedition mapped the bay, named this one of 3 other islands, Alcatraz. So I guess one of... so over time, the name was changed to Alcatraz. So the island itself was named Alcatraz before the prison was built onto it.
Okay.
And the meaning of this is still kind of debated, but Alcatraz is typically defined meaning pelican or strange bird.
All right.
Yeah. Okie doke.
Yeah. Honestly, I wasn't expecting that.
I wasn't either. I was like, really? Not like foreboding rock island? Not, any scary... just pelican.
Pelican. Or strange
bird. I really think it's interesting that it was in 1775, so before all the America shit happened. It was like a year before.
Yeah.
It was like mapped out for the first time. I figured it'd be at least mapped out before then, but it was not. So in 1850, there was a presidential order that set aside the island for possible use for the United States military. Thanks to the California gold rush, the resulting boom from that gold rush made San Francisco boom as well. And there was need to protect San Francisco Bay, and there was a lot of shit happening at the time.
Yeah.
So the U.S. Army actually built a citadel, or a fortress, on top of the island in the early 1850s. So as soon as they said, we need to do something with this, they went ahead and did it. And the Army also made plans to install more than 100 cannons on the island, making Alcatraz the most heavily fortified military site on the West Coast.
That's crazy.
And so many.
That's a lot of cannons.
So many cannons on this one relatively tiny island.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
It'd be like, what, a cannon every 50 feet? Like, I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe. So, together with Fort Point and Lime Point, Alcatraz formed what was known as the Triangle of Defense, and it was designed to protect the entrance of the bay. And the island was also the site of the first operational lighthouse on the west coast of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I have a picture in... I need to delete some of these tabs real quick. I can't get back and forth easy. Okay. Right there at the very tippy top, that first picture you can see, that was that first lighthouse.
Oh, okay.
And they still had some structures on there and stuff. This is like it's a doodle.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not an actual picture, but it's a doodle. So, from the jump, Alcatraz was pretty much always a prison. By the late 1850s, the first military prisoners were being housed on the island. And the island never fired its guns in battle. So all those cannons, and they were never used. Yeah. So it was pretty much a very heavily armed prison from the get-go.
A prison rock.
Yeah. And in 1909, the Army tore down the citadel, but left its basement level to serve as the foundation for a new military prison. So I guess they realized the old prison, or the first prison, probably wasn't cutting it anymore. They need a bigger prison. Might as well make it the only thing on there. So they tore down the citadel, built a new prison in 1909. From 1909 to 1911, very short amount of time, the military prisoners on Alcatraz built their own prison. So similar to our bonus episode that is coming up soon. You'll see some similarities here, but it actually wasn't uncommon for prisoners during this time to build their own prison, which I feel like is so fucked.
It's like digging your own grave.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. And I was talking to the guy that owns the coffee shop, and we were chatting about this little topic, and he was like, I just feel like that's wrong. And I'm like, yeah, and you best know that it's like, oh, I'm putting a tool in this little hidden compartment, and I might be putting one less bolt in this thing, and, you know.
Yeah, you're putting a lot of trust in the people you are.
You really are.
Forcing to.
I would be the worst contractor if I was told to build my own prison. Like, okay, you mean build it out of paper?
Toothpicks and spit.
I would be my own big bad wolf, just like, blow it down. So, this new prison, built between 1909 and 1911, was called the Pacific Branch U.S. Disciplinary Barracks for the U.S. Army.
That's a mouthful.
And we thought the British named things really long.
It's the British and the American military. That's it.
It's almost like they're in a contest to see who can name things longer. But the U.S. Army used the island for more than 80 years, from 1850 to 1933. Then the island was transferred to the U.S. Department of Justice for the use of my brain is not working. For the Department of Justice to use by the Federal Bureau of Prisons.
Okay.
Because turns out there's a Federal Bureau of Prisons.
I did not know that.
I did not either. So, federal government decided to take this 1909 facility, beef it up, and open it as a maximum security, minimum privilege penitentiary to deal with the worst of the worst. And to show the law-abiding citizens, the public, that they were taking the crime seriously and stopping the crime. Because during the Depression, now we're getting into the 20s and the 30s, during the Depression, people were getting really desperate and crime skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And they said, if you broke the rules, you went to prison. If you broke the rules in prison, you went to Alcatraz. It was really interesting. I'll get, I think, more into a specific statistic in a minute, but it was never completely full.
Oh, okay.
Because they were very specific about who they put in here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't a first resort for anyone. It
No.
was like the end of the line.
Even Al Capone, it wasn't even his first stop.
Yeah.
There might be just a few that, obviously we can't get into all of the prisoners that have ever been through Alcatraz. I'm sure there have been some that was their first stop, but that had to have been extreme circumstances.
Yeah, like these are irredeemable people.
Yeah.
That cannot be in a general population prison.
Yeah. We'll talk about some notable prisoners in a minute.
Okay.
How and why did they consider Alcatraz escape-proof? So, first off, it's an island. And not just any island. It is in the San Francisco Bay, which is absolutely treacherous. It is terrifying.
And freezing all the time. I don't think it gets above like 50 degrees Fahrenheit on any given day.
I think in the middle of the day, I think they said it averages mid-60s, which is cold.
It's still very, very
cold. And it's salt water.
Mm-hmm.
So, the cold and rough waters Yes, but they were more than a mile from land in any direction. Hypothermia can set in after only 30 minutes. Competitive swimmers can swim that mile in 30 minutes to an hour. And that's low tide wetsuits. Competitive swimmers. So even if you did escape the building, good luck out there. Good freaking luck.
Yeah, it's not like they just have boats laying around for you to take.
No. The tides in the bay were super dangerous. They could get up to 6 miles an hour going out into the sea. And the water temp at night, typically, 50-54.
That's cold. That will kill you very quickly.
Yes. So, on top of the water itself, they had 6 watchtowers and a 20-foot fence with barbed wire. Hourly checks, routes made by the guards. And even the bars in the cells were different. In the original prison, and by original I mean the 1909 version of the prison, they had metal flat bars, and they upgraded them to really fat round bars. And the main difference between those bars wasn't just the fact that the flat ones, you actually had a flat surface to like saw against, and in just a couple days you could get those cut. The new round bars were heat treated, and they were like saw resistant. They were the same hardness as a hacksaw blade, so you couldn't get it cut through because it has more carbon in the steel. It's like trying to cut a knife with a knife.
Yeah. Or like trying to saw essentially a diamond at this point. Like,
that's exactly why, and I know this from my very, very brief stint blacksmithing, that's exactly why you temper metal to harden it. Mm-hmm. And that's why you don't just get like floppy knives all over the place. So they literally like heat treated these bars so you couldn't cut through them. So how was life in prison? Bad.
I can, yeah.
It wasn't good.
No.
So it's really funny. All the sources that I found that were not the Alcatraz website were like, or the federal like Bureau of Prisons source. All of them were like, it was really bad in there. And then like the 2 government sites were like, it wasn't that bad. It was just a prison. We just held them.
We just want to help them.
Yeah.
Get better at society.
Reformation. No. I don't know.
It was Alcatraz.
Yeah. I don't know about the extent of violence at this place, but I do know that for most of the time they were confined in their cell, which is teeny tiny, and that gets monotonous and stressful after a while, being confined like that.
I mean, from the jump, they're trying to remove all hope by putting a prison in the middle of an island in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, all right, all you who enter here.
Yeah.
This is your last stop.
So it was considered, they did put those who they considered violent, dangerous, and at risk of escape attempts. So we've got people who are murderers in the cell next to just a petty thief, because petty thief couldn't stay in his own prison cell the last place he was at. So if they tried to escape too many times, they're like, fuck it, you're off to Alcatraz. So The average population was only about 260 to 275. Its capacity was 336.
Okay. You know, like, it's not very often that you hear about an underpopulated prison.
Yeah.
You know?
It's weird.
And it really makes you think, like, they were very selective, like, as you were saying, about who went here, because they still had, like, 50 more people they could have put?
Yeah.
In Alcatraz at any given time, and they just were like, no.
We're not going to do it.
Yeah.
You had to have, like, effed up real bad to make it to Alcatraz.
Yeah.
Some prisoners considered the living conditions better than at other federal prisons, mostly because they, like, got their own room and were on, like, a good schedule, and you know, so you can tell this one was one from the Bureau of, like, Prisons, and then, like...
Oh, they had a great time. Their rooms were very spacious and luxurious, and every afternoon we did arts and crafts.
Arts and crafts. It said Alcatraz was not the, quote, America's Devil Island that books and movies often portrayed. I feel like maybe Alcatraz is like an individualized experience. Like, for some, maybe it was really bad, and some, maybe it was only marginally bad.
Yeah. It's all perspective.
It's perspective. I mean, there were a lot of prisoners who, for good behavior, they just got, like, laundry duty. Or they, you know, got to work in the kitchens, or, you know, did something. But a prisoner only had 4 rights there, and that was food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. Everything else could be taken away. At least they had those 4 things, though. Yeah. So you had to, like, earn the right to work, correspond, or have family visiting, go to the library, recreational activities, like painting, music, stuff like that. Once the officials felt like the prisoner no longer posed a threat, they could transfer back to a normal federal prison. But that was on average after 5 years in Alcatraz.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So let's talk about some famous inmates. We've got the Birdman. So he...
Don't like that.
I know, he sounds like a serial killer, doesn't he? He kind of was. But he never actually had birds at Alcatraz. There was a movie made about him, Birdman of Alcatraz. He spent 54 years of his life behind bars. Not specifically at Alcatraz, but at other prisons, he would attack other inmates. He murdered a guard, and then he got life sentence. And then he spent 30 years at Leavenworth, where he, I think that was in Kentucky, if I remember correctly, but he developed an interest in birds and eventually wrote 2 books about canaries and their diseases. Yeah.
Interesting.
Murderer gone...
Ornithologist.
Yeah. So initially, like, the prison officials allowed these bird studies because he was like, well, I mean, it's a constructive use of his time. But then he was, like, hiding things in the bird cages.
Oh,
and,
yeah. No.
You know, so whatever. In 1942, they transferred him to Alcatraz, where he spent the next 17 years. 6 of those years was in the segregation D block, and then 11 of those years was in the prison hospital. And then he was transferred out and died a few years later at another location.
He spent 11 years in a hospital? Like, was he, like...
Prison hospital, yeah.
Was he, like, mentally
I think
ill?
He had health issues by that point, because he was...
Gotcha.
Old, because he spent 30 years at a different prison, because he spent a total of 54 years in prison. Okay. So it was like the last, 20 plus years, he was not doing so good.
Okay, gotcha.
Then there was Frank Lucas Bolt, and he does not fit in with any of what I said you have to be really bad to get in here. He does not fit. He was done dirty.
Oh, no.
So Bolt was serving in the U.S. Army in Panama when he was convicted of sodomy in 1932 and sent to serve time at the Pacific Area Military Prison. Then in June 1934, he was shipped to Alcatraz 2 months before Alcatraz even officially opened. He was inmate number 1, and the only thing he did was be gay.
That is awful.
Because
sad.
Director J. Edgar Hoover, who was Alcatraz's biggest proponent.
Sorry, you said proponent.
I know. I felt it. I felt that it was wrong. My tongue started doing something weird in the middle of that.
Proponent.
Oh my god. Proponent. So he didn't have a tolerance for homosexuality, and he wanted this prison to be like, we're getting rid of all the crime and, quote, undesirable lifestyles. I don't know how long he was there. I don't know what happened to him. But I know he was inmate number 1. Yeah.
Like, before the prison was even open, that's how badly they wanted to get rid of him. That's so sad. Oh.
And I don't even know, like, what happened to, like, his partner.
There's no telling. How tragic.
Okay, he died in Hawaii. I feel like we can take a moment to figure out what happened to him.
Sure.
He was sentenced to 5 years in prison.
His partner, or?
No, he was 22. In the fall of 32, he was arrested in the group of soldiers. 50 other soldiers. Okay, so he left Alcatraz after 23 months, so only about 2 years. And then he eventually got out, got married, and had kids. They had 11 children.
Wow.
And they were married for 26 years. So he was
I'm
all
glad
right.
He got out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. Poor Frank. Okay, I think you'll know the next one. Al Capone.
Al Capone.
Al Capone.
I almost had the chance to visit his cell when I went to go visit the Eastern State Penitentiary, but we ran out of time.
Oh, so sad. Was
I
that
know.
the one where it was all, like, opulent and had, like, fancy beds and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen.
And
he didn't have that here. It wasn't here.
No. No. Not at Alcatraz.
No. So, yeah, like we said, earlier stints in prison, he had guards on payroll.
Oh,
and
yeah. He had, like, half of the police force on payroll, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. He was, like, living the life in prison. And then he arrived at Alcatraz in 1934. And he was one of the first prisoners to be sent to the Rock. He was inmate number 85.
Wow.
Yep. He was denied all the lavish amenities, and after his years in Alcatraz, apparently he left kind of a broken man, and he was not the same since. He apparently didn't deal
imagine.
with the, like, loss of power very well.
Yeah. And he didn't live for too much longer after he left Alcatraz, right?
I don't think so. He was sick.
He had syphilis.
Yeah.
Which, syphilis, like, it's a bad way to go. It, like, gets into your brain. It is not a good way to go at all. See, what time did he get out of Alcatraz?
November 16th, 1939.
Okay, so he died in 1947, so. It was a few years.
Yeah. So the next one we've got is George Machine Gun Kelly. Not to be confused with the singer, rapper, artist now. This guy, while having less tattoos, was kind of more badass. Anyway.
Yeah. You don't get called Machine Gun because you're, like, a super happy, sweet guy.
No. He was a notorious gangster. And I would love to tell you about his life, but I won't. Because I was intrigued with his story, and you're going to have to tune in to when I do that episode. So I won't tell you what his life was like. But I will give you a little nugget. Apparently, it was his wife that coined the Machine Gun Kelly name. Yeah. I'll tell you about his life in Alcatraz, though. So, largely uneventful. He took a job as an altar boy at the prison chapel. Did laundry, held administrative roles, and did stuff in the office for a long time, and kind of just served his time quietly. He still bragged and stuff, life. But, like, lived his life. Whatever.
All right.
And then we've got, before we get into the final escape, Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. So, Johnson got to Alcatraz in 1952. Bumpy?
Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson.
Why did I not put that together until just now? He's Bumpy Johnson.
Oh no. Did he have the herp derp?
Oh no. He might have. You never know.
You never know.
You never know. So, Bumpy came to Alcatraz in 1952, and he was at the height of his reign and was the godfather of Harlem. And he was sentenced to 15 years for drug conspiracy. And
wow.
Bumpy Johnson served the majority of his sentence at Alcatraz, and he was released on parole in 1963. He spent 11 years at Alcatraz.
Wow.
And though this remains unconfirmed, Clarence Carnes, a notorious Alcatraz prisoner, claimed in interviews that Bumpy helped the Anglin brothers, which is who we're about to talk about, escape the prison.
Oh.
Over the years, Alcatraz has had 36 escape attempts. And in only the 30 years that it was open as Alcatraz, over 20 were captured before getting to the water. And I don't know if these are individual people or groups of people, because they would try to escape in groups. I kind of think that it was individual people, the way they were talking. So over 20 were captured before getting to the water. 6 were shot and killed. 2 drowned. And then there were some unaccounted for. So, are y'all ready to get into those who were unaccounted for and maybe get to the bottom of where they ended up, if they ended up anywhere?
Yes.
Yeah. So, we've got Frank Morris, who is known to be kind of the Houdini of prisoners. He would just be leaving. He'd
just be leaving.
He'd just be leaving. You ever thought about just leaving? So, he spent his childhood, unfortunately, in the foster care system, was convicted of his first crime at 13. By his later teens, his criminal record was, like, bad, ranging from narcotic possession to armed robbery. And he spent a lot of formative years in a boys' training school and then pretty much just graduated to, like, actual penitentiaries. Morris was credited by a lot of prison officials to have a very high intelligence, and that earned his one-way ticket to Alcatraz because he just kept escaping. Like, damn, dude, just stay where you're at.
You know what I want to do after doing crime? More crime.
Crime! It's my favorite hobby. So, in 1960, federal officials decided that after all these attempts, they termed it his shotgun freedom, even though he never had a shotgun getting his freedom.
I wonder if it's meant in the sense like shotgun wedding, shotgun freedom, where it's like very brief and sudden.
Well, I was thinking shotgun like scattered, because when a shotgun, it scatters. Maybe both?
Who knows?
I'm going with both. So, on January the 18th of 1960, Morris hopped on a boat and went to Alcatraz, and he became inmate number 1441 from our skit today.
Gotcha.
That skit was, the numbers were made up except that one and the head falling off. So, who are the other two that escaped that day? Brothers John and Clarence Anglin. And before we get too far, I need you to look at these men. I need you to look at Clarence. That's not a very
I'm looking at him.
I've been looking at him. He has no right to be that good looking. I was scrolling through these pictures. I saw in color, he's got the prettiest blue eyes. I'm like, damn it, I would have been a mob wife in a heartbeat. I could be convinced so easily. He looks at me like that in the 30s. I'm set. Apparently, I got a thing for bad boys.
I guess so.
Mobsters
with very heavy brows.
Hey, I like brows. I also think it's funny that him and his brother look pretty much nothing alike.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like, how on earth are they brothers? They don't have any of the same. Maybe their hairline, but
yeah,
his brother looks very confused.
He does look confused. But for real though, I'm gonna have to stop staring at Clarence. I text some friends that earlier today. I sent them a Snapchat, and she was, what'd she say? That's how you end up on Love After Lockdown, Emily. It's like, I'm a happily married woman. Thank you very much. I can look at these 80-year-old pictures if I want to. So they apparently, along with their brother Alfred, got arrested for just really bank robberies and just kind of petty thievery. And they weren't, that's the thing. These three men were not like murderers. They were not big time.
They weren't like violent criminals.
Right. They just had a habit of ditching other prisons when they wanted to. And so they got thrown in jail along with their brother Alfred, but then the two of them, thanks to previous escape attempts, got put into Alcatraz. Well, John and Clarence met Morris in Atlanta. So then Morris went to Alcatraz, and then the Anglin brothers came to Alcatraz. And they were like, hello, buddies. So
they're reunited.
Yeah. So in 1961, that's when the Anglin brothers showed up. So early 1961. So about a year after Morris showed up. And I don't know how many people out there know this, unless you just do like a slightly deep dive. There was a fourth accomplice. And his name was Alan West. And he was brought into the scheme. If you ask Alan, he was the one that came up with the entire plan. But he's the only source we have. So Yeah,
who's to say?
Yeah, he might have just been like, yeah, I was real smart, and I put that together all by myself. But he's
also the only one still around to answer questions.
Yeah. I will briefly say why later, but it seems a little weird to me. I don't know. But so he was serving his second term on the Rock, and he just kind of had a reputation for being an arrogant criminal. And he actually met John Anglin from a stint at the Florida State Penitentiary. So they're just like mingling in prisons now. Whatever.
It's a new friendship service.
Oh my God, do they make BFF bracelets?
And their arts and crafts lesson at Alcatraz.
I was gonna say, oh my God, we could call ourselves the Alkies, but like we can't do that because like that's already a term for something else.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Frank Morris, John and Clarence Anglin, and Alan West. And they're already ready to bust out of here. Remember, Frank's the one that's been here, I think. Maybe Alan was there longer. The Anglin brothers had been there like less than a year. They were like, we're out of here.
We're tired of this rock.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa. Well, that's too damn bad.
It's such an iconic movie. I'm so glad you've at least seen that one.
I have. I've seen that one multiple times. Me and Stanley Yelnats are buds. Who came up with that name? Anyway, okay. So they had to do some prep work because all these other attempts were not successful because they were not apparently thought out well enough. People would basically either never make it to the water or they would make it to the water and they're like, fuck. Now what?
Yeah.
I will say,
very.
One person did swim the entire mile to San Francisco using nothing but rubber gloves as flotation device. His accomplice was one of those that drowned. He didn't make it very far. He got hypothermia and drowned. He made it all the way to the other side, but was so hypothermic that they just picked him up and took him back. That's so sad.
It's very sad.
At that point, is he a murderer? Let him go. How bad is he? He at least deserves to get off of the island. Take him to another prison. He worked so hard.
He tried so hard and got so far. But in the end, it doesn't even matter.
Okay, do not let prisoners just out. Okay, that's a bad idea.
No, we're just joking.
Just goosing.
Just goosing.
Okay, so December of 1961, just months after the Anglin brothers show up, they're like, we're out. So they began this plan. The prep work is what I'm calling this section. So they somehow got some old saw blades that Alan West somehow found in one of the utility corridors while cleaning. I think Alan West was able to get in those utility corridors because I think he had been there long enough to be well, you're on good duty or good behavior duty, so you can go back there and clean these. And the way they worked is they had cell blocks and they'd have this void space between, and those were those utility corridors or maintenance hallways. I might call them both. And that's where all the plumbing for the sinks and the toilets and stuff would go. And then if you had to do some maintenance on it, you could do that from, whatever. the outside in between the cell blocks. And also, for everyone to know, it's almost like a box inside of a box. So if you were to, say, climb to the very top of a cell block, you could be under the roof still, but on top of the cell block, and there's like dead space up there.
Okay.
So I had to watch many documentaries to really get the logistics of what the fuck happened. So
yeah,
I'm trying to explain it to you as best as I can. So they started with these old saw blades that they found in one of the utility rooms. And they started to chisel their way through the air vent grate. And they chose that because obviously we can't saw through the bars. We've established that's not an option. So they had an air grate underneath their sink. And the Anglin brothers had cells next to each other. And apparently West and Morris had cells next to each other.
Oh,
so
okay.
They, on alternating shifts, say Clarence would work while the John would stand lookout. And they would switch every hour because of the rotations. So they would start their work at 5:30 p.m., continue till about 9 p.m. And that was just before lights out. So they would still have lights. And they even made a periscope to look for guards, to like spies. And they filled the hole with like cardboard, soap, and paint. So I do have a picture of that, Morgan, because I had a hard time visualizing this. If you kind of go down, if you go down enough, you can see like the vent and how they covered it up. So they took this cardboard and they somehow got a hold of some of the paint that color matched. And from a distance, that looks fine. Like, it just looks like the grate, and the walls are kind of... Look, this thing has been around since 1909, and it's getting bashed by the salt water. So, like, the cells look kind of rough anyway. So It was easy for them to cover it up. And by May of 1962, so for 6 months, they made that vent hole bigger. And then would cover it up every night. You know, they'd work for 10 minutes at a time, 20 minutes, however long, cover it up, act like they weren't doing shit, and then go on. But they had dug through, the vent holes originally were 6 by 9 inches, and had opened it up enough for like an adult male to get through if they crawled.
That's crazy.
So, like I said, those maintenance hallways were behind the cell. So they would crawl through, put the vent grate back up. But there's a teeny tiny little problem. If they're not in their rooms, obviously things are going to get tripped, right?
Right.
So they started making paper mache heads that looked like themselves. So John and Clarence gave theirs names, Oink and Oscar. And they made these heads out of cement powder and soap and toilet paper.
That's so crazy. Because honestly, like when you think about the materials they had, they're not bad heads at all.
No.
Like I'm looking at a picture of them.
Very convincing.
Yeah.
They even got some hair from the barber shop and glued real hair to it.
They even, like, the big one right here, like, they glued eyelashes on.
Uh-huh.
That's insane.
I'm baffled already. So, every night, they would put up the heads in the bed after lights out, open the grate, crawl through, close the grate behind them, crawl to that dead space at the very top of the cell block. And what was up there were pipes and other kind of various things. There is a picture of that dead space there too, where you can see all that material laying around. This is where they took 50 raincoats and had read in a popular mechanics magazine how to make waterproof glue. And they would use the hot pipes and melt the rubber from the raincoats with the glue. And they made a homemade raft, paddles, life jackets, and they even stole a concertina, which looks like an accordion, to use to inflate the raft. So I guess they took the mechanics, so they didn't have to like blow it up.
So it's almost like a bellows almost.
Yeah. And for, let's see, so this was like May, for a month, for the next few weeks, they would sneak out and build themselves a fucking boat out of raincoats to get out of there. And then they're ready, right? There was also like, this is important too, because it's like, how do you get, there was like a vent hole, probably 2-3 feet around in diameter, that didn't really have a cover on it, because why would it when you're in the ceiling that high up? And because they're like 3 or 4 stories up. And when they were ready, on the night of June 12th, they placed their heads in the bed, went through their grates, climbed up, grabbed their gear, went through that vent hole onto the roof, because the fence connected to the building. So then they, from the roof, shimmied down a 30-foot pipe, like gutter pipe, and then ran for the shore. Now, this is where Alan gets left behind. Apparently that night he could not get out of the grate fast enough. So I don't know if like a guard was coming by and it was too late, and whatever happened, he got left behind. So this was around 10 to 11 p.m. So I saw one source that said 10. I saw one source that said more like 11 is when they launched the raft into the bay, which really isn't doing bad on time. If you're talking about lights go out at 9, you go through the grate after you set up everything. You go through the grate, you crawl up, you scale the building with all of your
up
gear.
Your raft.
Blow up your raft and then get on it in 2 hours. Not bad. Yeah. No one knows that they're missing yet. They go out. It's high tide. Water's 50 degrees. So, do they make it?
Well, I watched Mythbusters where there was an episode of Mythbusters where they tested this exact scenario where they got the prison grade raincoats that they would have had at Alcatraz with that rubber, and they made the glue that was in that magazine, and they like heat treated it, and they're like, wow, this is really effective. Like, they built a perfect replica of this raft from scratch. I think they were wearing proper life vests and wetsuits underneath their clothes.
No need for all that, but yes.
Yeah, they're testing the spirit of, can they get from Alcatraz to the San Francisco shore on a raft made of raincoats. And the Mythbusters did it.
Listen, so did Josh Gates.
Yes.
So I think, I'm going to tell you what I think later, because we have a little bit more to go. Yeah. But officially, they drowned in the bay. Officially.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do we know? What do we know happened? We know that Alan got left the fuck behind. So
also, like, he had 2 hours to catch up. Like, what happened there?
I don't know. I honestly, not a clue. And it wasn't like he's saying, oh, I was totally in on that. I know everything that happened. He had a head too. So he was out. He had a head. He had a hole in the vent. He had it all. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what happened. But it seems weird to me.
I wonder if he just decided to back out at the last second. Like,
maybe
he was too afraid or something. I don't know.
But Alan said that their goal wasn't to go to San Francisco. Their goal was to go 2 miles north to Angel Island instead of the 1 mile south to San Francisco. So they didn't want to be seen in their prison garb in San Francisco. Understandable. Also, Angel Island was home to a missile base at the time, and it was being decommissioned. And that means it was being taken offline. So there were only a few people there at the time, and there were supplies that were still left over. So the plan was to go the 2 miles north to Angel Island, get the supplies, and then go the 1/4 mile to Marin. I'm having a hard time with that one because it's spelled like Marin, my dog, but it's Marin. Okay. And where the plan was to steal a car and escape.
Vamos out.
Yeah. So, what evidence did we find? We very well might have found the life raft and life jackets on Angel Island.
Oh.
And other pieces were found on the ocean side. With that, I'm just guessing they probably fell off, got taken out by the current. But the life jacket isn't going to go north when the current is taking it south without... That was just my observation.
Yeah.
So they also found on Angel Island a sealed packet that was made out of the rubber raincoats and that was glued shut so the contents wouldn't get wet. And what it contained were pictures of the Anglin brothers' family. So they had something of, I know, it was so sad.
Yeah.
You lost your pictures. And they also found one of the handmade paddles. On December 31st of 1979, they closed the case. They couldn't find them.
Yeah.
And it stayed closed until 2003, when a U.S. Marshal, Michael Dyke, just felt like poking around, seeing what he can find. And he was like, maybe I should go through some of the government documents, right? So he goes back to Marin County police records and found the day, so I guess it'd be like the wee morning hours after the escape, a car was stolen. And it was a 1955 blue Chevy. And eyewitnesses said there were 3 men inside the vehicle. And that didn't stick out to anyone that night because it wasn't public knowledge yet.
Right.
So
like the escape attempt had just happened. Like, no one would know. Not even the guards at Alcatraz knew that an escape had happened.
They didn't know till 7 a.m. the next morning. Then Michael Dyke found another report from just a few hours later, about 100 miles from Marin, and that said that 3 men driving a blue Chevy forced another car off the road. So there is another very compelling theory that they did escape.
What was that?
My soul leaving my fucking body. I guess when I said something, it turned on Siri and she said, uh-huh.
I heard that. I was like, what? How did that happen?
Oh my god.
Are you okay?
No! I almost peed. If there was ever an intruder, I would just pee on myself.
You're gonna make me pee? Oh my god.
Don't rob me, I peed. So another theory is... Okay. So another theory, which is very compelling, is that they were able to escape somehow, whether it be going to Marin County and doing that whole thing or whatever. They were able to escape, and they went to Brazil.
I've heard that theory.
Yes. So Josh Gates does an excellent job covering this theory, and they actually have the nephew of the Anglin brothers is digging into this case. And what really sparked this is that in 1992, a man named Fred Brizzi showed up at this guy's mother's house. So it would be the Anglin brothers' sister. And was like, hey, I know it's been a long time. It's been like 30 years. You don't know what happened to your brothers. Here's a picture of them in Brazil. They're doing fine. They lived out full lives, I guess had family and, married and stuff, and lived out the rest of their lives in Brazil. And again, Josh Gates goes through this, shows you all the evidence, but even talks about how Mickey Cohen kind of helped orchestrate their escape, because they had worked for Mickey Cohen in the past. Mickey Cohen is another mobster gangster figure. We're not going to get too much into that. But what's really, really cool is that they were able to go kind of triangulate a part of Brazil that they think they would be living at. And they were able to find someone in that town that as a teenager remembers 3 white American men who spoke English hiding out in the jungle for a while in that area during this time. And then they went and actually found evidence. They found an American penny in the wilderness, and they found a bunch of other stuff. So, obviously it's a TV show, so take it with a grain of salt. But what was really interesting was that they took the pictures that were found and compared them to the pictures of their mugshots, and they came back 99.97% compatible. And out of all they did other tests to be unbiased, and every time it went back to those 2 pictures. So, did they live in Brazil? Maybe.
Who knows? Who knows for sure?
I think, and it might just be the hopeful person in me, I think they made it.
Yeah.
That is my personal opinion.
Well. I mean, we've established twice, at least, that the journey is possible with the materials they had. And they clearly were resourceful men who could figure it out. So I think it's absolutely possible that they
even at a minimum
to Brazil.
If we ignore the Brazil thing, even just to get to Marin County, the boat was found on Angel Island. All they had to do was run the rest of the way, and then they only had a quarter mile to swim. That is totally doable. Because I think the waters between those 2 land masses isn't as bad as it is out in the open. And it's only a quarter mile. You could swim that in 20 minutes. 15, 20 minutes. I think it's possible. Absolutely.
Also, this photo of the 2 men is one of the most 70s photos I've ever seen in my life.
Look at those shirts. Look at the sideburns. I mean, I had to make it
goatee.
The goatees. Look, those do not look like the same men. Probably for good reason. They're like, let's grow our hair out.
Yeah, let's get the weird curly hair, the The goatees and the sideburns and...
Oh my God, look how...
It's so 70s.
Look how deep cut the one on the left, his shirt is just...
That V-neck with the brown pants.
The brown pants. There was a style. It was a look.
Yeah. It was a look.
It was the 70s. It was, those were choices that were made.
Yep.
So, about a year after this entire incident went down, the, government was like, oh no, they just drowned. Alcatraz is still impenetrable.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're not going to say, yes, it's possible to escape from Alcatraz.
No, they're not going to say that. Do you imagine the uproar in San Francisco at the time?
Well, the people would be like, excuse me?
Yeah.
People can escape from Alcatraz. And then all the prisoners would be like, hell yeah, you can escape from Alcatraz.
Hell yeah.
All you have to do is build a boat.
On a roof within a roof.
But don't wing it. These men definitely did not wing building that boat.
No. They spent, 8 months? 7 months?
Yeah.
Working on this? Patience. Mm-hmm. There was one escapee that I came across in the research, and he apparently over 10 years gathered pieces of military uniform, and then he finally got all the pieces, and he just walked onto a military boat, and he thought the boat was going to San Francisco, but the boat was actually going to Angel Island, where the military base was still operating. So that he just showed up, got rearrested, and sent back.
Oh, man.
So, the prison did close on March 21st of 1963. And this was about 1 year after the escape. And it didn't have anything to do with them. They had already established that the prison was too expensive to keep open, so they were going to close it anyway.
A giant prison in the middle of the ocean is expensive.
Giant island fortress for the murderers. Yeah.
He said that was so funny. For the Moideras.
Moideras. Moira? What Moira? Oh my God. So, The Rock's been solidified in pop culture references. I mean, I could go on for another hour about the movies and the video games and the TV shows and just cameos, and apparently it was in Tony Hawk Pro Skater as a level you could skate. It's there. And they've made a couple of movies about Alcatraz itself. Mm-hmm. And you know what? They kept talking about the Anglin brothers, but Frank was never really mentioned again. Mm-hmm. So I guess maybe he went to Brazil too? I don't know. It said the three of them were down there. But then after that...
Maybe they're just... Maybe he refused to get his picture taken.
Maybe. Maybe he just, I don't know. Maybe it was because they were talking to, the nephew of those guys. I think it would be really sad to never speak to your family again, Yeah. Because it was 30 years before they even got that picture of them, quote unquote.
And someone else had to bring it to them.
I feel I don't know. I guess letters could be tracked. And if you don't have a way to tell your family where you're at, then...
Yeah. No, I think they were definitely doing it for their... If they were in Brazil, it was we're going to send a middleman just to make sure our family knows that we're still alive, and...
Yeah.
That's it.
Safe. So, okay. There's the escape from Alcatraz.
Wow. That was interesting.
That was, whew. I've been in prison all day. finishing up my research.
You need to escape. Build a boat so you can get out of prison.
I don't have just 50 rain jackets laying around, Morgan. I do have a paddle board, though. Do you think that will work?
Maybe. I don't know.
Could you imagine paddle boarding in San Francisco Bay?
That's what I was just thinking. Like, could you even?
I mean, you could try.
Those are rough waters.
Yeah, you'd have to be laying down the whole time.
Yeah. Like surfing, almost.
Yeah, and then you still probably get flipped over.
Well, that was an interesting case, Emily. Thanks for covering.
No problem.
Alcatraz.
It's only been on the list for about a year now. So.
And you finally did it.
I finally did it.
You know what your son told me when I went to go visit you guys last weekend? He said, "Why haven't you done military jeeps yet?" And I was like, "It's on the list. Your mom's going to do it eventually."
So we should probably get into socials.
Let's do it.
Yeah. You can find us on Facebook,
Ill-Equipped History Podcast Group and page.
Instagram,
at Ill-Equipped History.
Gmail,
ill-equippedhistory@gmail.com.
TikTok,
at Ill-Equipped History.
and Patreon.
Patreon.com/Ill-Equippedhistory. Please subscribe and donate, and you get to our bonus episodes.
Woo! Do you want to give the listeners a little clippy clip of this month's bonus episode?
I think we should. Yeah.
Oh, gee, naked ass men.
Oh, I can only imagine just all the slapping noises.
Just running.
Awful.
Just every.
Why did you make the noise? It was bad enough in my head. I hate you.
I needed to get you a more visual.
No, that was auditory.
Yeah, I know.
You nasty.
Listen, you brought up the slapping.
I did.
It's not my fault that they didn't want to get boners, so they got naked.
That's logical.
Well,
thanks a lot, Emily, for that mental image.
You're welcome. Anytime. So, if you're going to escape prison, one, don't, PSA. But if you are, plan it accordingly.
Use your thought skills.
Get as many raincoats as possible.
Make glue.
Arts and crafts.
At Alcatraz.
I feel like just an inmate dressed up as like a grandmother. And today, kids, we're gonna do finger paints.
Tomorrow, it's macaroni necklaces.
Thursday, shanks.
Oh my gosh, that took me out. Oh Lord.
You're welcome.
Y'all know when you laugh so hard, you just start, like, kicking your feet and, like, punching the air because you can't do anything else with your body? That's what I was doing just now.
Breathe.
No, but your body's like, get it out!
It's because you're fighting for life. It's like...
You are going to kill me.
Face hurts. Oh my god, okay. We have to let these people go.